Time Boxing Show on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the Old Time Boxing Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in our boxing historian, Christopher Shelton. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Mike. The only undefeated heavyweight champion, 49 bouts, 43 knockouts. Speaking of knockouts, if you want your hair to be a knockout, go to Jasmine Sky and watch her tutorials. Guys, the ladies can't keep their hands off you. Sorry, Mike.
The hell is that? All right.
Anyway, Marciano. This is going to be better than those shows, only the knockouts, because there's just one guy doing them all.
Yeah, and when we look at Rocky Marciano, there's probably nobody that could be 49-0 with 43 knockouts and catch more hate from current boxing fans than Marciano. You always hear people talk about the competition wasn't that tough. He didn't fight anybody. That's simply not true.
No, I bullshit. The English have a way of doing it. And Marciano was a kind of a dirty fighter. Everyone takes their shots at Marciano, and quite frankly, I don't understand it. He himself said he was very fortunate to be undefeated. He was never like a guy that acted like Holmes acted like even when he lost, he was better than everybody. Marciano said he was fortunate sometimes. He just felt that it worked out, but he didn't feel anything other than what he was. He's a growing person. He wanted to be a baseball player, hurt his arm, switched to boxing, and it just kept and growing and becoming a better boxer with good training, and it all worked out except for his legacy, where and even his lifetime, where for some reason there's just a reason to knock him, and then when you put him against people historically, everybody beats him according to all these people that never actually had to fight Marciano in the ring.
Yeah, it is not true. When we look at this, his last loss was to Coley Wallace in the amateurs. And Marciano, much like Mike Weaver, Ray Mercer, guys we've talked about recently, was a boxer in the military. He joined the Army in 1943 during World War II. Basically got his start amateur boxing there. He had a very short amateur boxing career before he turned professional. And really, that's kind of what makes it amazing here. And he had a couple fights against La Starza. Even Rex Lane, I've seen a lot of people say Rex Lane gave him trouble. I think this was a guy that was much better at the end of his career than at the start. I think a lot of that reason was because he got a late start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things, just because people like to pick on Marciano so much, is how these people are going to beat him. So I kind of joke around when they go, this and that involving Marciano. I go, well, exactly which Marciano are you talking about? And you really do with a lot of boxers. Are you talking about the Marciano that fought Rex Lane or the Marciano that fought Archie Moore? I'm like, well, what's different? The same guy. Well, this guy was growing and becoming a different and better fighter. So it's the same guy, but it's not the same fighter. He did improve his skills. There's quite a few fighters where it kind of seems like they've already hit who they are and were larger than me in that zone. And Marciano was willing to improve and change himself. Originally what he had was just that right hand that it's different than Tyson, where Tyson really get leverage or Dempsey got leverage. It didn't always look like Marciano had leverage. He was just trying to club it and throw it away and hit you and stuff. But he grew from that and tried to be a little bit more of a controlled fighter.
Yeah, and he actually had a close call early in his career against Ted Lowry. This is a guy
Marciano trouble.
Yeah, I read in the Providence Journal, a man by the name of Michael J. Thomas wrote, Marciano did not win the fight as he had given Lowry 6 rounds to 4. The crowd of almost 4,000 booed the decision and wonder if Lowry had thrown the fight. And Lowry actually had Marciano, from what I've read, in a lot of trouble in the second, third, and fourth rounds. Marciano came on later in the fight, got the decision, but that was the first fight where people thought something may be up. And I had an argument with somebody on social media the other day because he said that all Marciano's fights were mobbed fixed, which any of the research I've done.
Look what happened to the opponents.
I've never seen. This is the only fight that ever stood out to me as possibly fishy, but I don't think it was. I think Marciano won a close decision. There's no film of the fight to be able to see it. So you go by newspaper reports. But in the end, Marciano did win the fight. So when you look at the Lowry fight, Lowry was a guy that had over 100 fights when he fought Marciano, and it was only like Marciano's 13th or 14th fight. Marciano got the win. And then you get the fight against Carmen Vingo, which there's small clips that exist, but that's one where Marciano beat him so bad that Vingo collapsed into a coma in the hospital. But Marciano still said to this day that he thought Vingo was the toughest fight he'd ever had, where, I mean, it was the toughest fight of his career, Marciano said. And of course, Vingo lapsed into a coma. And I remember reading where Marciano paced up and down the corridors at a hospital, prayed to God to spare his opponent. Fortunately, Vingo pulled through, and they became friends.
Marciano seemed like a fairly decent guy, and honestly, I'm not sure if the undefeated thing worked for him historically or not. It's something very tough to do, like an NFL team, going the whole way undefeated. There's only been one. Because Marciano was vulnerable, early in his career as an amateur, and really didn't pretend anything else. It worked out that he was getting the wins, and he was building a following and stuff. The following kept thinking every time he leads to the next level, they think it's probably going to come to an end, or he's going to lose. And I'm not sure Marciano thought any different. He's got to go out there each time, and if he loses, well, then go out next time. And he was just pulling it away. Except again, now that we're doing this and hopefully showing the video and stuff like that, you're going to see someone that I think is much more dominant, certainly in conclusions than many people give him credit.
Yeah, then he beats Ted Lowry easier in the rematch. Lowry even admitted that Marciano won. And that brings us to Rex Lane. Now, Rex Lane was a tough fighter. Of course, everybody says he wasn't since he fought Marciano. But we're going to pick up the action here with Rocky Marciano against Rex Lane.
Rex Lane beat Jersey Joe Walcott in 1950, right in the era of Ezzard Charles becoming champion. So he beat Jersey Joe Walcott in his prime. Lane was definitely a tough guy and a contender. In this period of post Joe Louis, Ezzard Charles, winning the decision over Jersey Joe Walcott and becoming champion, and at this time, who's going to be the next dominant heavyweight boxer, or is he going to switch from one guy to the next? And we're really not sure. Joe has held the title for so long. So yeah, Rex Lane and Marciano. This is two contenders, kind of just trying to figure out where each one of them is at. Both of them have a crowd following.
Yeah, and we have Sean, who I believe is from Ireland, has his comment about Rocky Marciano had no business being in the heavyweight division, but always done business. Midget guy by today's standards. I'll tell you what, though, I would still take Rocky Marciano over about any heavyweight I see today.
Yeah, and I imagine our Irish friend, because of the weight, Marciano fought a little under 190, but Ezzard Charles fought under 190, and Ezzard Charles is a real tough son of a bitch as a heavyweight. He's a really good heavyweight, even one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. And Leon Spinks, beat Muhammad Ali, at under 190 pounds. The weight in itself, and the short reach. I mean, Marciano in this fight against Lane, is more than 6 inches disadvantage of reach. It seems like that should kill you. I mean, in boxing theory of jabs and stuff like that. And Marciano's aggressive. I mean, each guy is plotting for Marciano and this reach disadvantage, and it's just not working out for them. Like I said, hopefully, watching the visuals of Marciano, he's awkward. He comes at you in a way that's just a little awkward to try to get control of him and such like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's so strong here. And if you watch these guys punch, Rex Lane was a good fighter, but it's not like Rex Lane landed every punch he threw on Marciano's head either.
No, and I got to tell you something. For again, our Irish friend, Marciano, finished his career as an undefeated heavyweight champion. Goodbye, Rex Lane. If he fought as a light heavyweight instead of a heavyweight, Marciano probably would have taken some losses. All of a sudden you're facing a different crop of fighters with really great hand speed and stuff like that. Now Marciano did have good hand speed for a heavyweight, but as a light heavyweight, it's a different crop of boxers, and I don't think he gets through the light heavyweight division. I mean, he's going to crush some of these guys, but he might take some losses too. It's a different.
But if you look at his build, I think it's unfair to say he'll take losses at light heavyweight, because I don't think he could have made light heavyweight. I mean, you would have to take 15 pounds off of him.
He was very steady along the way of where he sort of came in. If nothing else, he hated training, but he did it. I mean, said he liked to get up and run around and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit, get up and do a jog, and some people will like that, but the whole training itself wasn't always that easy. But Marciano would do it. He was very dedicated to doing it. It's very important to him to be a successful athlete, and it wasn't going to be baseball; it was going to be boxing. So it all twisted around, and he knew it was a learning experience. And the one thing he could do, you saw Rex Lane out, is when that right would land. I mean, everybody knew Marciano had a right. I mean, and then you had to fear it.
All right, so this is Marciano against Joe Louis. Everybody always talks about Joe Louis was shot. This wasn't the real Joe Louis. Sure, it wasn't. He was older. But the thing about Joe Louis was the favorite going into this fight.
2-1.
Most people thought that Joe Louis was going to win. Apparently, he was washed up. At least that's what you often hear. But if you look at the period in time, we'll show you that Louis was ranked #1 at the time he met Marciano. And in just the previous last 12 months, had beaten contenders Cesar Brion, Lee Savold, and a very capable Jimmy Bivens. And now, while it's true Louis was old, he was still considered the top contender. He was ranked higher than Marciano.
Yeah, and call him old and washed up, but just remember the heavyweight champion at the moment, same age as Louis.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at that, you get the fight against Harry Matthews, which I think might have been after that. Matthews was 84-3 and hadn't lost in almost a decade. When you look at this, I mean, it's complete, utter crap that people, treat the legacy of Rocky Marciano this way, because if you lived at this time, the majority of people thought Joe Louis was going to win this fight going into it. And Louis fought really well the first half of the fight.
Well, exactly. Well, the first 3 rounds, Marciano won. So you kind of think, well, then Louis might really see some sort of disadvantage. But Louis came on and won the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds. So Louis was getting control of what he wanted to do with Marciano. And so after 6 rounds, it's even. And again, Louis goes in as the favorite. Yes, it's just because Marciano, when he does something, there's a way of discrediting it and saying, well, it didn't really happen or something like that. And that's just when you like somebody, whatever they do, you like. And if you don't like somebody, no matter what they do, you don't like them. Apparently he couldn't hold a Larry Holmes jockstrap later on. I don't know if he wanted to, but if you don't like them, you don't like them. But again, we watch these visuals and you're gonna see quite a few of these guys getting crushed, and they're not being paid by the mob to get beat up the way Marciano's doing it. Now, again, one thing Marciano does when he has you in trouble, it takes him a while to kind of get going. He's behind in a lot of his fights, but reminding me of Jack Dempsey or Mike Tyson. When they get their guy in trouble, they really come on fierce.
Yeah, and you look at the uppercut, the way he works the body. I mean, the way he wrestles inside. I mean, Joe Louis doesn't look bad here. And like I said, I know that I'm not saying that Rocky Marciano beats Joe Louis at his best, but if we look at Joe Louis's competition when he was the champion, it's not like that competition was stellar.
Well, our experience said that Marciano should be fighting the light heavyweight, but Marciano's probably, 25, 30, something like 30 pounds or more less than Joe Louis. And look, he's pushing Joe Louis backwards with his force. Marciano we underestimate what he is as a heavyweight once you look at his size and his weight. He's smaller than Joe Louis. He weighs a lot less than Joe Louis. But Joe Louis, with nothing else, isn't that easy to push backwards. And guys bigger than Marciano couldn't push Joe Louis backwards. Marciano, there's a fierceness, there's a talent, an incredible willingness to win. And Marciano does get off to sometimes, I don't know about slow starts, but he misses punches. He's sort of off. And then he starts getting better. And when he starts hurting you, well, then your opponent starts slowing down. And that's really the key. Marciano is when he starts to hurt his opponent, Marciano seems to be the same guy in the 6th, 7th, 8th round. His opponent's no longer the same guy.
Well, it's the same thing where he gets better as the fight goes on, because I think he kind of feels out what the guy's doing. I think his intelligence level in a ring is very underrated, because there's very few guys. You get guys like Lennox Lewis and everything that'll be better in a rematch. Rocky Marciano was always better in a rematch. In a rematch, he always dominated more than he did the original fight.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, Mike, because along with everything else, that his reach is bad. He doesn't weigh that much, heavyweight, this kind of thing. Yeah, he's also dumb. Well, Marciano's not dumb. He's not really. He's not. Muhammad Ali. He's not a guy who's quick with a wit or anything like that. And try to be. He's an athlete, but you're right. That'd be one more thing aimed at Marciano, is that somehow he's dumb. Well, meanwhile, he does learn inside fights. He says, when he's in fights and he thinks he's losing or things are going wrong, you're right. He adjusts and he works with his team, and he gets better as the fight moves along. Also because he's hurting the opponent, but also he's thinking in the ring a little bit. While a lot of times the opponent sort of feels safe and everything until they start to hurt, and then all of a sudden they're tired and struggling a little bit with Marciano. And Marciano appears just to be getting charged up more and more.
Yeah, and Rocky is definitely a finisher.
Absolutely. Dempsey, Tyson, Marciano, three great finishers. The phrase is sometimes they'll hit you, knock you down, and kind of stand back and admire their work. Marciano admires work. He keeps coming at you. When you're in trouble, he keeps coming at you like Dempsey and Tyson in their prime.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just. I mean, the thing is this. It's sad because it's an older Joe Louis, but Joe Louis was putting up a fight. This was not like the night Muhammad Ali lost to Larry Holmes.
Absolutely, and it's also not sad in the sense that Joe Louis did to Max Schmeling. Max Schmeling was the older guy when this happened, Max Schmeling, and also that what happened to Joe Louis happened to a lot of guys that fought Rock Marciano. Is it sad that it happened to these other guys too? Not really. I mean, it's boxing, and you see the damage Marciano's. I mean, Foreman is it. I wouldn't want Marciano's chance against Foreman, but Marciano's opponents at the end of the fight look like they can't move, they can't get up, they don't know where they are. I mean. He really clobbers you in his last 14 fights, which started with Rex Lane, 13-0 and 14-0 and 14 fights and 13 knockouts.
Yeah, and this is Harry Matthews, who at the time was, I think, 82-3 and hadn't lost in about a decade.
Winner gets to fight for the title. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think he was like the number 3 contender at the time. So when you look at this with Matthews, Lewis, all these guys, this was not an easy road to the title for him. I mean, this is not the late 20s, early 30s heavyweight division. There were some quality guys here. They don't get the credit for it, but Rocky Marciano could fight.
Right, and Marciano, I think the thing is, Marciano, while he has a rapid fan base, even they're a little surprised. They just kind of keep thinking that the air is going to be taken out of this balloon, despite the results. And the results are incredible because people now you really can't just watch a Rocky Marciano fight. At one time, it wouldn't be that easy. You can see it maybe live as it happened, and then it's in your memory. And somehow, when people had Marciano in their memory, some people thought of him with a certain amount of fondness as, a classy athlete in a sense. But again, they just didn't quite remember the devastating punishment his opponents endured.
Yeah, and it was devastating when you watch it. Yeah, I mean, when you watch this, I mean, he didn't just barely. I mean, that's the thing that drives me nuts about people since he's Italian. Well, it was mob driven. I just don't believe that because I don't think anybody for any amount of money is taking one of these shots and getting knocked unconscious.
No, those guys you talk about, they'd really like Archie Bunker. He said about the Italians, when you can find an honest one, you really got something.
Yeah. Well,
and Marciano, incidentally, his mom was asked about Rocky Marciano. Was he a good boy when he was young? And she said no, he was a nice boy, but he wasn't a good boy. So she spanked him. And spanked him hard until he stopped doing bad things. And Marciano was asked, when your mom spanked you, did it hurt? She said, yeah, my mom could hit. And they weighed about the same. When they both weighed 191. Marciano was fighting for the title.
Yeah, but she was probably 5'2", so.
They're stocky, they have an unusual build. Well, second round, Harry Matthews, and winner gets to fight Jersey Joe Walcott. And one more guy. That is this sad, or is this just Marciano keeps doing it to each one?
Yeah, I mean, there's no mistake right there. You watch this in slow motion. This was a knockout that would be on ESPN's #1 for a Saturday night if it was fought on Saturday night on ESPN.
Well, if people think Harry Matthews was paid by the mob, he wasn't paid enough for this shit. And he wasn't paid by the mob. You're facing a tough guy who hits hard, he's a knockout artist essentially. A couple guys like Ted Larry survived him twice. Well, that's two of the 6 fights where somebody survived him. There are a couple guys who simply fought him better, but not a lot of guys could get through him without not only just being knocked out, but these are like that program, nothing but knockouts, except it's one guy. These are pretty devastating knockouts, considering it's also in his prime. It's not like, well, Mercer, when he took on, I like Ray Mercer, but sometimes when he took on lesser competition, knocked him out of the ring clean. Marciano's not taking on light competition right here. This is getting to fight for the title.
Yeah. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Harry Matthews wasn't no bum. I mean, the dude was 82-3, hadn't lost in 10 years, had some nice wins. This is what blows me away. I mean, people that don't think Rocky Marciano is legit top 10 heavyweight of all time are basically idiots.
Doesn't it look like Joe Louis or Rex Lane just before them? And we're going to see it coming up for the title fight too. again, this is some pretty devastating stuff, which is why I'm so glad we're able to do this visually. Doing an audio on Rocky Marciano, I don't think people believe us. What
No,
we're saying.
we're just two white guys that are pumping up, the white champion, if you know what I mean, because that's
Yeah,
what people see. I
I'm
mean,
white
because
Latino. Marciano's white Latino also. But you're
yeah,
right. It's
but you
somehow
know
being
what
on
I
the
mean.
side of a
People
color or a
see,
race or something.
yeah,
Bullshit.
you see what is supposed to be a white American heavyweight champion, so everybody is immediately going to shit on him because of that.
Yeah, well, in the case of somewhere along the line, it seemed to be that if somebody was really fast at track, they're going to be black. Probably, maybe American, maybe in longer distance, it might be black and African. But it seemed like the faster people were black until all of a sudden you see a guy from Atlanta, a football player, zoom, fast from white from Iowa. But the same way the heavyweight division started being dominated by black Americans, it was so prominent, it was kind of all you knew. And the Great White Hope, that language, toxic, as then you start to go back of, well, when was there really a last great white heavyweight? Johann, for the Swedish guy anyway.
Ingemar Johansson.
Yeah, people didn't really think of him the same way. Marciano, though, was the one you went back to and the undefeated record, and then it became piled on him. Well, he was from a time when he found the old black people, and Joe Lustig didn't fight a lot of black people either when he was heavyweight champion. But Marciano fought who he was supposed to fight in his time.
Well, four of his 6 title fights were against African Americans.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's just you don't like them, and it's kind of a shame. I think it really took the Klitschko brothers, to be perfectly honest, as much as Americans hate them, to finally put an end to this bullshit that if you're white, you're automatically a fake story when it comes to heavyweight fighting. Tony Morrison said, I had to deal with, that's all I had to deal with. Somehow, I'm a cracker, and meanwhile, I'm facing black guys. I think they're racist too. I'm racist. They're racist. It's that's the way we are. But we fight when we try to keep it is what it is. But yeah, at that time, heavyweight boxing, same thing we mentioned Larry Bird. It just was at a time when you just didn't think white people were the same, even though it's really black Americans. It's not exactly blacks from other countries. There's lots of black people in the world. Americans at this time are dominating. Because now we do anything to have an American dominance that's gone.
Yeah, and Ryan, thanks for the comments. Sean, thanks for the comments. We're Jersey Joe Walcott versus Rocky Marciano. I think Marciano was a small underdog in this fight too. There was like 4 or 5 fights, and he gets knocked down here. Slow starter, as you said, but he'll get up, he'll figure it out. And Jersey Joe Walcott is a guy, well, people say he was old. He was 38. Jersey Joe Walcott was better at 38 than he was at 28.
Yeah, same age as Joe Lewis. But people forget, Walcott started as a lightweight. Get to lightweight where he's at, and the boxing skills. When he fought Lewis for the first time for the title, he knocked Lewis down 3 times and just easily outboxed him the whole way. Even though it was a crazy decision to go against him, Walcott greatly improved. He could. Not only is he a great boxer, which he was, he could hit hard. When he finally, it was his 5th attempt at the title. When he finally landed on Ezzard Charles, and Charles is out. Walcott could hit and he could box. It took him a while to get there, and then the Army delayed things. It would have been so sad if Walcott, I think, robbed in the first fight with Lewis. And I don't like some of the stuff in the second fight, but to not get a chance to win the heavyweight championship, it was so nice that he did it. And he's fighting Marciano well. There's really nothing there's not a lot of guys can beat Jersey Walcott right now at this time, and it's not because Walcott's old. It's just because it's Marciano, and Marciano really is peaking kind of at this moment. But he's going to face a guy who's a great boxer who can also hit hard.
Yeah. And when you watch this is not an easy touch in Jersey Joe Walcott. Walcott was a damn good fighter. Had the wars with Ezzard Charles. This is a tough out here to get a heavyweight championship from. And Walcott was winning this fight as we watch it. He kind of controlled the first half of this fight.
Yeah, actually, what it'll come down to, I'm sure we probably the 10th round of when they start landing and pounding at each other hard, and then Walcott's going to be a decision because Walcott at a certain point believes he's got Marciano's number. He believes he can get the knockout without going to 15. He's going to hurt Marciano. Marciano's going to hurt him back. They're going to start, really landing on each other. But at a certain point, Walcott's going to believe, Marciano's jarred, seriously jarred, and I think I can take him out. And what we always talked about is the decision making of Tim Witherspoon when he fought Larry Holmes, the 9th round. Tim Witherspoon knocked Larry Holmes down early in the round. Larry Holmes is really looks like he's close to out of it, and should Tim Witherspoon just absolutely go for the knockout while they're available, or do you run the danger that if you do that and spend all your energy and you don't get the knockout, what might happen? And it's a tough decision to make in the time. Witherspoon ultimately didn't knock Larry Holmes out and then lost the decision. So it is tough. Walcott in this round is going to have they're both going to be landing furious punches, but as you can see, you can understand Walcott thinking, you know what, I think this guy, I might be able to take him out.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why he would think that.
Punches landed in this one, and tell me you don't think Marciano's a heavyweight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people just say that because of the age. And like I said, the skin pigmentation is his biggest problem here. I think we all know that.
And then the English like to say, well, they're all white and stuff, and don't like him either. So and they don't like him for this reason and that reason. He always fought old fighters. He was sort of dirty, and he didn't, blah 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 blah. Well, your fighters couldn't do shit against Marciano. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it was basically just Don Cockle, right?
Well, the only one they can fight for the title, they didn't really have anybody, and Marciano. Now we're gonna probably see something. If there's something to say about him fighting dirty, we'll bring it up. We're not gonna hide that. There's no hiding if Marciano has flaws, but there really wasn't a lot at this moment to suggest Marciano was a dirty fighter. It was just in retrospect, and this fight's gonna be one of them where it was tagged onto him, and he's gonna have one fight where yes, there are quite a few warnings against him. And we'll mention that when it happens. But at this point, Marciano doesn't really have any kind of reputation like that. And this is a 10th round heavyweight championship fight. And to me, it looks like a heavyweight championship fight, especially with Joe Louis gone. And what's going to happen in the heavyweight division without Joe Louis? Well, first we had Ezzard Charles, and that was a great run before and after he won the heavyweight championship. And now it looks like a heavyweight championship fight. When the hell are we going to see a heavyweight championship fight again that looks like a heavyweight championship fight?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Everybody talks about Joshua and Klitschko. Joshua and Klitschko's not
Fury. Those two guys are never going to fight, and it ain't going to look like this.
No,
first of all,
I mean,
Fury has to get permission from people to fight.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. We watched Joshua Klitschko. It's boring as hell, except for 2 rounds where people get knocked down. This is a great fight.
Also in his 40s. Klitschko was an amazing, Vladimir Klitschko was an amazing athlete when he was younger, but the guy who was an amazing athlete was gone, toasted, and died by the time he got around fighting Anthony Joshua.
Well, how about this? People say that Marciano couldn't fight. I think Marciano at 189, fighting like this, would beat the hell out of Deontay Wilder, because Deontay Wilder can't fight going back up, and Marciano would destroy his body, and he's got too much heart for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what they're going to say, 100 years from now about Mike Tyson, but if you look at his size, you might have a lot of guys beat him. But Tyson in his prime, he was undefeated. He was also a great defensive fighter. Marciano wasn't necessarily great. He wasn't necessarily a great defensive fighter. It's just hard to get off. It's hard to hit him because he keeps coming at you. So you can't really get on your game of hitting Marciano. I wouldn't call it great defense or anything like that. Tyson had great defense when he was undefeated. But it is very difficult to be on your game and tag Marciano because he's in your face every single second.
Yeah, well, the other issue I have is this, though. When we watch Marciano, we just watched him get knocked down. He'll get knocked down against Archie Moore, too. And he always got up and won. Mike Tyson never did that.
Same thing, Muhammad Ali, 4 times. Muhammad Ali got knocked down by 3. He was up in all 4 of the times he was knocked down.
Yeah, Larry Holmes also. Mike Tyson? No, he didn't get up and win a fight when he was in trouble.
No, and he didn't know how to put his mouthpiece in right. He's in trouble. So now, is this sad, or is this just look like one more guy fighting Rocky Marciano? Even though it's for the title.
They all look like this.
They all look like this. They're in trouble.
You had Harry Matthews laying, his head smacks off the rope and everything.
Rex Lane, history.
You got Joe Louis falling through the ropes. This is what Rocky Marciano did to people. He ended their careers. There were very few people that the only person he really fought that went on to have a great career after he fought him was Archie Moore, which he always gets hell because Archie Moore was so old. But Archie Moore, almost 10 years after losing to Rocky Marciano, was still the light heavyweight champion of the world.
Oh yeah, and if nothing else, the Archie Moore knockdown of Rocky Marciano again somehow disparaged Marciano in some way. Although, believe me, Marciano pummeled Archie Moore, and Archie Moore, was older at this time and stuff like that. We'll get to Archie Moore and stuff like that too.
Well, let's face it,
Archie Moore was a great boxer who knew what he was doing when he fought Marciano later on.
Yeah, he was a tough son of a bitch. Next up, we had the rematch with Jersey Joe Walcott. This is the one on social media where the guy told me it was fixed because his uncle's nephew's niece or something, knew Jersey Joe Walcott, and Jersey Joe was given $7,000 by the mafia and told to lay down. This is not Jersey Joe laying down. This is an old Jersey Joe Walcott in a rematch. I think everything was beaten out of him in the first fight, if you know what I mean. I think he took this fight so he could cash out to end his career because Jersey Joe was not in here to get in a fight.
Okay, and very important with your rules and your polo grounds right now. And Walcott's just only going to get knocked down, but the rule is in New York, when you get up, you got to start fighting. So if you get up at 3, the referee's going to wave you to keep fighting, and Walcott's hurt and wants to try to take the full count. And so it's not like you get up at 3 and you still got 4 or 5 seconds. No, they'll wave you to start fighting. So all Walcott's going to do is decide to try to take it to the limit. Now, he's just going to make a flaw that I think Jerry Corey made against, the Canadian, Chavallo, is the count. And we can count of exactly the referee of where we're at when Walcott jumps up. I think he just jumped up a second too late. It's so really close. And again, the audience can decide for themselves. In fact, whatever the audience thinks, it's no different than us. We're watching the same thing the audience is seeing. We're going to have the count. We're going to see everything's going to be exactly the same. It's just a matter of, does it appear Walcott's going to jump up ready to go because he's trying to take it to the limit. It's just, hey, maybe you should have jumped up 1 second earlier, the same way Corey should have jumped up 1 second earlier against Chavallo. And the referee said, no, you're late.
And Buddy Gibbs chimes in, Marciano fought whoever, whenever. That is true. And it's just like when people talk about we didn't fight the great black heavyweights. They're usually talking about Nino Valdez.
Yeah, he didn't fight the great black heavyweights. Just Joe Louis, Ezzard Charles, and Jersey Joe Walcott.
And the problem is this. The problem is this. Nino Valdez got his ass beat by Archie Moore, which is why he didn't get the title shot.
That was not anybody that was good, just Archie Moore.
Yeah, it was an elimination fight. Buddy, Marciano had to take it all out of Walcott in the first fight. I think that is definitely true.
He didn't fight great black fighters is the dumbest goddamn thing I've heard in my life. Now, I think it's on 2, 3. I lost the count here, but 5, 6, 7. Marciano, he's okay. He's trying to jump up. 10. The jump up and the 10 simultaneous and the waving hands. It all seemed to be simultaneous. I think Walcott should just jumped up 1 second earlier. He's taking the count. It's really easy to follow as referee. Maybe we could try to do it if it goes down.
How about this? I believe this. I believe he was here for a paycheck. I think that he wanted to act like he was all right, and it was a big disgrace that they stopped the fight. He had no intention of fighting in this fight. And I can tell you this. He's 38 years old. The fight he put up against Marciano the first time, the fact that he got knocked out devastatingly, I don't mind him going out and getting paid one more time. Jersey Joe Walcott was a great fighter. He was a warrior. He knew his time was done.
6, 7. I mean, Walcott's cleared. 8. He's just getting extra time. 9, 10. Now, it was pretty quick, but Walcott should have a second earlier. But I can understand Walcott following it the way he followed it, but there was still a fraction of something, and it's possible. I'm not arguing that hey, Walcott's unreasonable. I just think he should have got the second earlier. He clearly could have, but the reason again he didn't get up at 2 or 3 or something is because the referee would have waved him to fight, and he's just trying to take the extra seconds because it hurt him. He got knocked down. Marciano got knocked down the first round against Walcott. That hurt Marciano. It hurts when you get knocked down, and if you can get the full count, get up as fast as you can, and then just take those extra seconds that are available. But they're not available under these New York rules at the time. If the referee at 3, the referee's going to wait to keep fighting.
All right, next up, we got Rocky Marciano in a rematch against Roland
Starza.
Lastarza, who a lot of people thought Lastarza won the first fight. Lastarza was a very good fighter, but I think this is another case of how smart of a fighter Marciano was. In this fight, the first 5 or 6 rounds was kind of like that first fight, at least from what I read about it, because there was no film on the first fight. But Lastarza kind of controlled it through 4 or 5 rounds, and then it seemed like Marciano figured him out. Once Marciano figured you out, you were done.
Well, so Star's a college graduate. Used to fly his own airplane around. Good defense fighter. His strategy was stay away from Marciano, stay off the ropes, try to tie him up when he gets close, reacts to what's happening to him. And he was a smart, but he tired out. And this is the one fight that if you want to get a Marciano for being a dirty fighter, and say it in English accent, a dirty fighter, he got some warnings. He got 5 warnings in 7 rounds. Versus Lastarza in this, and the 6th round, the referee just took it away from him and said Lastarza's round. So, but Foreman had that all the time, and Foreman doesn't have that kind of reputation. Marciano does not get a lot of warnings. He got a lot of warnings in this fight. If you want to say you think he's a dirty fighter, this is the one to point to. Now, Lastarza came in with maybe a cold or something, because he's lighter than he should have been, that he was at the weigh-in. I think he gave Marciano a good effort and such like that, and I think he just started to tire finally, and the punching started getting to him. And it was kind of a good thing that eventually it came to an end, because Lastarza was trying to get to the 15th round, but it was really obvious before he got knocked down. This wasn't the same guy who fought the first 6 rounds.
Well, and Ryan LaGrande, Rocky, Arturo Gatti, Warren Mancini, best fights to watch. I could agree; those all 4 are the best fights to watch. But I think putting Rocky Marciano in the same sentence as Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward is kind of sacrilegious. Gotti and Ward were guys who were true warriors. They were not as skilled as Marciano. They didn't accomplish what Marciano did. And also, I'll tell you this, I don't think Mancini belongs in the same breath as Gotti and Ward. I think Mancini was a far superior fighter also.
Yeah, and nothing else. Marciano, he did run his career undefeated, and Lastarza is a guy that gave him a lot of trouble. So far, Lastarza lasted the distance the first time around, and that was only 10 rounds. Now you're up to 15. And again, Lastarza might have a cold or something, and he's also put a lot of energy. And Marciano, the warnings of the dirtiness, it's the only thing you can maybe say that also hurt Lastarza's chances. But Marciano's just wearing the guy down too, and seemingly just relentless. Marciano just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going like that Energizer bunny or something. And it went the distance, but Marciano's eventually going to get this guy to knock him out. But it took a while. But as you see, Marciano has a lot of energy. It's one thing about being a little bit lighter and stuff. It's always held against them. But he also doesn't carry as much weight, and he does come in in reasonable shape. Now the thing is, he only fought 1 round in a year because of the Walcott thing. So early on, he's missing a lot of punches, and it's taking a while to get going, sort of to get his aim and his timing. He's also finding he's changed his stance. They decided that maybe if he crouched a little bit lower, and they're trying to work on his stamina, and they're trying to work on the aim, and they're trying to improve Rocky Marciano, even as heavyweight champion. Again, you don't see too many fighters improve themselves from the time they hit their peak. And Marciano's at his peak and still thinking, hey, you know what? There's things I need to improve upon if I want to keep winning.
Yeah, and if you watch the way he fights, I mean, to me, he's not a crude brawler. I mean, there is a method to Marciano's madness.
Now he's right now, third guy to fight for a college graduate who loved lacrosse. Marciano's fighting a real smart guy whose whole plan is to watch Marciano and study him while he's in the ring with them. He's certainly not fighting a dummy, and neither Lastarza is not fighting a dummy either.
And look,
there you go. It's just exactly like the other guys.
Yeah. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous that you have people that think Marciano is overrated.
And the guy gets knocked through the ropes. And Lastarza is really kind of giving everything he can. It's just, again, a matter of when you see the energy he had and what he could do and kind of tie up Marciano. Marciano seemed to have a little bit of ring rust, and finally Marciano started being more and more in his game, and Lastarza's tiring out and getting beat up. And I think when the referee stopped, it was an excellent stoppage, because there's no reason to see Lastarza get knocked unconscious like these other guys. There's no reason to see it anymore. Marciano has got the guy's number, knocked him through the ropes. The referee, good stoppage.
All right, then we got Marciano against Ezzard Charles. Ezzard Charles, one of my favorite fighters of all time. I mean, to me, Ezzard Charles is the greatest light heavyweight of all time.
Yeah.
And I think he's on my top 5 pound for pound list. I think he's one of the greatest fighters ever. And the fact that Rocky Marciano beat him twice, and the fact that Rocky Marciano wins a fairly close, tough fight the first time, and then comes back, dominates, and knocks him out in the 8th round in the second fight, once again goes to show to the underrated intelligence of Marciano.
And this is round 15, and also, quite frankly, the underestimate of Ezzard Charles' skills. I mean, in a way to disparage Rocky Marciano means you've got to disparage Ezzard Charles. That always wash up and old. That is bullshit. I mean, this is the 15th round of a 15-round heavyweight championship fight. So one guy in the last 14 fights went the distance. Well, it's Ezzard Charles. It's not like some chump. And just because, so it's a way to say, well, see, Marciano didn't knock out goddamn everybody. Well, nobody did, but he knocked out most of them, and he's fighting a real smart guy who's doing his best to go the distance and still try to compete with Marciano. And it's Ezzard Charles. I mean, oh no, he didn't fight any great black heavyweights. No, just Ezzard Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott, Archie Moore, and Joe Louis. But nobody anyone thinks is good. God, if you think they're bad black heavyweights, then I like to hear the good ones.
Well, this is the thing, and the white heavyweights he fought were pretty damn good too, especially
exactly. Exactly, and they get disparaged. You know, in disparaging Marciano, then you have to disparage everybody. So if Marciano, when he beats a white guy, well, then the white guy must really suck because Marciano wasn't that good. No, he wasn't that good except he won all his fights and knocked these guys from the next fucking planet. The first guy to go to distance with him. Hey, it's Ezzard Charles that's going to distance with him. No chump at all.
Yeah, Buddy Gibbs says Marciano actually tried to fight Ezzard Charles years before they did fight. Charles took the Lewis fight instead, which I assume was for the title. So he probably made more money fighting that fight. So
yeah. When Ezzard Charles fought, Joe Louis was for the title, and quite frankly, that was the fight people wanted to see. Joe Louis was the favorite going into that fight, and Ezzard Charles, despite again being a great light heavyweight, I mean, one of the greatest of all time. I think he's from Cincinnati. You from Cincinnati, Mike? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Mike's from Cincinnati too. So
Ezzard Charles Boulevard. There's even an Ezzard Charles craft of beer you can buy in Cincinnati.
Well, goddamn, there should be. Ezzard Charles deserves it. You know, Cincinnati. They didn't like Robert Mapplethorpe. They liked Ezzard Charles, and goddamn, there should be monuments for Ezzard Charles.
Nobody likes Robert Mapplethorpe. He was creepy.
Well, anyway, so Ezzard Charles was the first one to ask the distance, and Marciano could have been a better sport about it, or say, you know, I'm fighting one of the great ones, and always to the day he died young at 45 in an airplane crash, and they asked Marciano, who's the greatest heavyweight of all time, just Joe Louis, you know, Marciano, you can hate him, and hey, watch the show and still keep hating him, except again, I think he's fighting some really talented guys, and the whole thing is you have to disparage his opponents. And it starts to become, I think, embarrassing at a certain point to try to be that stubborn, because again, our point isn't to just wave banners for Rocky Marciano every second. In fact, it's just people disparaging him that we're sort of having to take the other side. If we were doing something that everyone just saying was great every single moment, well, then we might have to try to pick their flaws. And we have tried to say Marciano, you know, wasn't absolutely perfect. I don't think he's a dirty fighter, but against Ostarja, he took 5 warnings. Okay, we mentioned it, and we didn't do it in English accent. A dirty fighter, 5 warnings against Listarza, if I recall. You know, what are you gonna do? So Ezzard Charles hurt Marciano in the 6th round. He hit Marciano so hard, Marciano was just bleeding, hemorrhaging out of his nose, blood, and thinks his nose is broken. Ezzard Charles, a tough son of a bitch, and so here we are in the 8th round. But Marciano's nose has a lot of stuff on it to try to keep it from bleeding. Because Ezzard Charles has tagged him and hurt him, except Marciano didn't know what to do except quit touching his nose, because every time he touches his own nose, it hurts. So it keeps doing it anyway.
All right. Buddy Gibbs, the fight purse was actually close to that, with what he got with Lewis, but fans wouldn't consider Charles the true champion until he beat Lewis, so he had to. Charles spoke many times that he didn't want to take the fight, but he didn't have a choice.
Well, it's going to be, sort of an unpopular thing. What are you going to do? Joe Louis is an American institution and beloved in a way, and Ezzard Charles didn't do anything but he was supposed to do. He fought a great fight against Joe Louis, and then, well, he fought Joe Louis. You know, again, when you don't like somebody, you can just sit there and nothing they do is right. And I'm glad when we did the Ezzard Charles show, we said it is such goddamn bullshit to put down something like Ezzard Charles. And it's, well, we obviously don't think, Marciano, what are you going to do? All right, well, then, just, who would you like? We could pick on them too. And at the same time, it's not picking on people. There's very few, anybody in sports that don't have flaws. Otherwise, what would be the point? It wouldn't be a sport. And Marciano does have trouble at times with training. He is getting a little bit older, and it's difficult for him to train. But he knows he has to train against Ezzard Charles, and he says, this guy, I knew he'd be tough, but when you face him in the ring, it's something else. And I had a lot of trouble, putting this guy away. And my nose, I think, is broken, but I don't know. And finally, Ezzard Charles, God bless him, he thinks he avoids the punch, and then that's all it is. Marciano tagged him with the right. That right was a goddamn tough right. And down goes Charles. What are you going to do? It's a heavyweight championship fight against a deserving Ezzard Charles, and Rocky Marciano still undefeated, but I don't understand the argument. He's not really taking on tough guys. Who the fuck is he supposed to be fighting that he's not fighting?
Yeah, because he fought them all.
Yeah,
and look, and this is the thing. There's not too many of these fights are stopped with the referee saving the guy. They're usually stopped with the dude on the canvas and he can't get up.
Right, and Ezzard Charles, Ezzard Charles, went the distance, 15 rounds. Rocky Marciano, that's a tough thing, and he lasted the 8th round. He hurt Marciano. Ezzard Charles is trying to do what he can do, and unfortunately, he wasn't old shot up, and Joe Walcott knocked him out either. It's just you're up against somebody tough, and sometimes you're getting the best of them, and then you're facing somebody tough, and it doesn't always go your way.
Yeah, next up, he gets Don Cockle, which will give him a break since he fought a lot of good guys. Don Cockle was not one of those good guys, but Don Cockle was a tough guy.
He's one of those wonderful people that won in Europe all the fucking time, in England, until they had to face Americans. I'm kidding. It's true, though. I don't want to put down Cockle. He's a tough guy, and give me a shot at the title. And Marciano said, you know what? I blew it with this guy. I mean, Marciano credited, he didn't follow his own team. He said, you know what? I'm just going to go after this guy with my right and knock him out early, even though I know that's not the way to fight Don Cockle. That's what I'm going to do. And it was a mistake. He couldn't knock out Cockle, and it was a mistake to think he could do that. And Marciano admitted, he goes, that's why Marciano didn't brag about himself. He knew the moment I brag about myself, I'm going to get knocked out in the next fight.
Well, if you watch this, Don Cockle is getting worked over pretty good right now.
Yeah, Marciano did decide to switch it up. And Marciano worked on his left. From the time he fought Rex Lane to the time he's fighting Cockle now, this isn't a guy who just lands his right. This is a guy who's trying to get the crouch and the leverage a little bit better and working like hell to use the left on his fighters. Marciano, again, is working to improve himself as a heavyweight. And he's the first to admit that when I've got to keep improving as a heavyweight because I'm fighting guys that I don't want to underestimate, and certainly the public, when all said and done, well, it's just Marciano fought a white guy who's worse or something. It's like, God, bullshit. Can it be something besides race? Can Marciano win a fight where you goddamn don't mention the color of his skin?
No, you can't.
I mean, they're knockouts, and they're devastating. Cockle's a tough guy. I mean, it's the 9th round. He did well against Marciano, and Marciano admitted he was fighting badly. But that doesn't mean Cockle wasn't being smart and doing what he had to do. But then, Marciano starts coming at you, and just because Marciano's coming at Cockle doesn't mean Cockle just faded away or got scared or nothing. He's hanging in there with Marciano. He's trying to do what he can do against a guy who seems to be charging up with energy and landing a lot more of his punches. And Cockle's, a tough son of a bitch. I mean, he's standing in there with Marciano, even as Marciano is gaining strength. That English guy, he's a tough son of a bitch.
Damn. I'll tell you what. I mean, I watched this, and the only thing I can think is this, and I'm 100% sure of this anyway. All these people that sit there and say Rocky Marciano shouldn't be in the heavyweight top 10, I mean, when you look at it, they're dumbasses. They've never seen any of this. They don't watch any of the fights. They just have opinions. As I said, which Rocky Marciano, which Rocky Marciano are you talking about? This is a guy who kept working and improving himself as a heavyweight. So he's not the same guy. You've got in your head whatever's got in your head about this guy. But he changed and he altered and he
He's not exactly the same guy as he continues fighting. He went into this really as a raw amateur, and then he started in the Golden Gloves, and he knew he had to keep improving and such. And the competition is tough, and you can't underestimate the competition. And Cockle, you know, he's a tough guy. He's doing what he can do, and these other guys are not going to in loop land. And Cockle is hurt, beat up, and look at him still trying to go out there against Marciano. He's not getting hit lightly. The mob is not paying Don Cockle shit. Don Cockle's just getting beat. He's losing and finally getting beat up by a better heavyweight.
Well, that stuff just pisses me off because you can't argue with stupid, and all those people are stupid. And I mean, when this guy's like he was my great uncle or something, and he drove for Walcott, and he was there when he got to 7. It's just utter bullshit. I mean, Rocky Marciano was just better than everybody he fought at the time he fought them. That's all he can be. You know, there's nobody on there that you could say he ducked because Nino Valdez.
No. Who's he ducking? Yeah. And in fact, even after he finally retired, when he thought the training was too much, the next person to come around was going to be Floyd Patterson. I like Marciano's chances of Patterson if he decided you want to hang on him longer.
Thing, though. People say, why didn't he hang on to fight Patterson? Nobody knows this, really, I don't think. But in 55 when he retired, Floyd Patterson wasn't even ranked in the top 10 yet. So he wouldn't even have been in conversation to be in that fight.
No, and Marciano trained for a month getting ready for his next fight. And after a month of training, he said, that's it, you know. And that's the hardest thing in sports is to know your time. Gene Tunney did. Gene Tunney looks to me like he could have been heavyweight champion. Hey, 3-4 more years easily. But Tunney said, no, whatever I had to do mentally, physically, it was over. And an athlete rarely knows when it's over. And Marciano, he said, that's it. It doesn't matter who I'm fighting. I put a month into training, and I'm not Rocky Marciano anymore. But hey, he defended it 6 times. There's a lot of heavyweights who didn't. Foreman didn't defend his title as many times as Marciano. Nobody puts down Foreman as a heavyweight, or no one says Foreman should have fought as a lightweight. Well, he can't fight as a lightweight. He's about 280. He's 200.
Well, Foreman's only 2 titles.
Why should Marciano fight at a different weight if he can beat heavyweights? Joe Kowinski was about 175 pounds, and he gave heavyweights like James Jeffries and Jack Johnson trouble. There's a reason he was able to do that. He struggled a little bit more with light heavyweights. God damn it, when you know something about boxing, your weight isn't everything. Joe Kowinski gave heavyweights more trouble than light heavyweights at 175 pounds, and there's goddamn reasons for that. Sorry.
Chris is getting excited. All right, we're in the 8th round. Archie Moore, Rocky Marciano. Like I said, Archie Moore hadn't even fought any of the fights with Yvonne Durrell yet. I mean, this was not an Archie Moore that was done. Archie Moore was better when he got a little bit older. I would like to point out that Ezzard Charles whooped his ass, I think, every time they fought, even knocked Archie Moore out.
Yeah, that was it. I got to say, Archie Moore, one of the great ones of all time. Ezzard Charles, adding to everything in his legacy, really had Archie Moore's number.
Yeah, to me, Ezzard Charles, greatest light heavyweight ever. I know he never won the title because they never would give him a shot at it, but if you look at the people he beat, Ezzard Charles, one of the greatest fighters ever. And I know Buddy brought up a comment. Let's see, where was it? Yeah, right here, where Buddy says Charles fell in that category, Christopher. He just couldn't win with the fans. And that was true. He couldn't.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. And it's just an unfortunate thing because Ezzard Charles is just such a I enjoyed when we did the show about him. He's just a wonderful boxer to see and how he improved. Usually when he fought guys the second and third time around and fought a lot of times. But you're right. He's no Joe Louis. Well, that's very tough when people put that on you as a tag. And one of the great ones. And Archie Moore, he knocked down Marciano in the second, but from the second round, the 6th, round, Marciano was pounding the shit out of Moore. Moore probably kind of thought the same thing, maybe outbox this guy. I'm a great boxer, and maybe Marciano's not the greatest boxer, but once you get in the ring with Marciano, it's tougher than it looks. So I'm glad all these people who think Marciano wasn't that tough didn't have to go in the ring with him, because I see what Marciano does against professionals, and I think he knocked us totally fucking unconscious, if not dead. He hit so hard.
Yeah, and Buddy brought up that Marciano spoke of retirement before the Moore fight. Actually, I read something while getting ready for this show where Marciano even brought it up before the Cockle fight.
Well, he knew that like Riddick Bowe. I like Riddick Bowe. So Riddick Bowe, I can really put myself together and train until I win the championship. I just can't do it anymore. I can't train like that. It's tough. And Marciano admitted that training was grueling and he suffered ring rust. He knew in a sense that he didn't like doing it anymore. He'd done what he could do and just felt that as an athlete, he had reached whatever he could do. Again, a month of training before he decided, you know what, I'm just not the same guy anymore. And meanwhile, that takes a lot for an athlete to admit that, because this is his last fight. He still looks damn good. If Floyd Patterson, who eventually fought Archie Moore for the vacancy for the heavyweight title, Marciano really wanted to come back against Patterson. I like his chances, except Marciano doesn't like his chances because he says, I don't want to train like that. And I don't need the money, and I don't need the whatever. I've done what I was supposed to do as an athlete. I'm proud of it. It worked out that I was undefeated. Yeah, it was just later on. There was going to be a run of great American black heavyweights, and then sort of, hey, you know what? A white heavyweight couldn't really, win the title, sort of thing. And it just became something racist. And Larry Bird had to face it all the time in basketball. Well, all these reasons of, why is this white guy so good? It's because Larry Bird was a goddamn dedicated athlete, and it just happened to be basketball was his thing. He took Indiana State. Indiana, he got offended, played Indiana State, took that goddamn team undefeated to the championship game. Larry Bird was no joke. Marciano's no joke. I'm sorry that their color of skin is this or that, but it'd be the same thing if somebody's black and great in a sport that people don't think. Tiger Woods was so great. It's like, well, there's one great black guy and that's it, or something. Well, Tiger Woods is playing golf when he was 3. Had nothing to do with color.
Hey, look, Archie Moore ended up like everybody else.
There he is. He's down. Isn't it sad? It's not a goddamn shame. It's bad. It's heavyweight boxing. We want to see people get knocked down, and Marciano's knocking them down, and he's hurting these guys. And Archie Moore doesn't want to go down. Look at him, though. He's like the other guys. They're all like this.
Let's do this. Before we wrap this up, where would you rank Rocky Marciano all time? Definitely top 10. Where would you put him in that top 10?
I would put him as look. He did what he had to do. If you believe there's a couple controversial fights, it's certainly not the bigger guys in his careers. It would have been the Stars in the first fight, or Ted Lowry in their first fight, and that's just because maybe boxing in 10 rounds, and could somebody maybe get the best of something close. But certainly there's nobody who seemed to have Marciano in kind of trouble. And as you elevate himself against, Marciano fought better against the better heavyweights. And just, again, when you sound ridiculous, when people put him down, let's admit it. He had a great run. He did what he had to do in his time. He never said he was anything than what you saw. And it's too bad that later on he became a punching bag a little bit. The same way that Larry Bird became a symbol of something. Even the guy just wants to lay down.
The thing is this, with Larry Bird, I remember growing up in the 70s. When you saw a top 10 heavyweight of all time list, Rocky Marciano was always in the top 3 or 4. Now today with Larry Bird, you hear him talk about the greatest of all time. Nobody talks about Larry Bird at all. And I'm sorry, Larry Bird is so much better than LeBron James. It's sickening.
Here, let's put it this way. I'm glad you said what you said too. And when it comes to putting people down, nobody got put down more than Muhammad Ali. Really, until Muhammad Ali, even after retirement with the Parkinson's and stuff, there was all this shit about Ali not being good. Constantly throughout his career, constant criticism of everything he said and did. Constantly, he couldn't beat this guy or that guy, because a lot of people liked him, but a lot of people didn't. If you don't like somebody, you don't like them. So it was really when Ali had the Parkinson's and the trouble and the slurring of speech, that all of a sudden everybody loved him and pretended they loved him the whole time. You don't have to love anybody. You don't have to like anybody. You can hate whoever you want. Marciano did what he had to do. He ran an undefeated record, 43 knockouts in 49 fights. He struggled against a couple guys. He didn't struggle against guys that were great. He struggled against a couple guys who...
Hey, how about this, Chris? If you look at him, his title reigns and how he won the title...
And it's how more time as George Foreman.
I would put him in front of George Foreman. I'd put him in front of Joe Frazier. If you went off the quality of competition, he beat when he was the champion, what he did to be a champion. George Foreman had 2 title defenses. Ken Norton, Jose Roman. Or Jose Ramon, whatever the hell he is, however you say his name. And then he loses the title. He wins the title against Michael Moore. I don't think he ever defended it without being stripped. So when you look at that, and you look at Joe Louis, To me, hands down, the top two heavyweights of all time are Ali and Lewis. You can put them in any order you want. I know Buddy's watching. I know Buddy thinks that Lewis is the best. I think Ali is the best, but I don't see an argument either one of them. I think they're hands down the two best. After that, though, I can make a case for Rocky Marciano at number 3.
Sure, absolutely, and again, I don't think you have to pit people against each other from different eras. That it is what it is, and Marciano is a product of his era, and he didn't avoid anybody, and he landed some devastating knockouts. You don't like him, you don't like him. You don't have to like him, but no, it's a great heavyweight championship run, and the whole final thing of the white-black thing finally ended with the Klitschko brothers. And now, quite frankly, what I do like about Fury versus Joshua, if they ever get around to fighting, it doesn't feel like a black guy versus a white guy. It feels like two heavyweights if they ever get around to fighting each other. And thank God, they fight each other. Don't give a shit.
But they're not. They're not. It's going to be it's going to be Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder. That's black versus white, because that's, an American and it's a Brit. It's not two Brits. When it's two Brits, I don't think you get the same racial undertones. With Fury and Wilder, you get the racial undertones, and it's from the black American people that are fans of Deontay Wilder. Because when Deontay Wilder got his, basically, for lack of a better term, got his skull crushed by Tyson Fury, the blacks were so upset that a white man had beat their man that they freaked out. They make up all kind of conspiracy theories. He had this in his glove. He had that in his glove. No, he's just a lot better than Deontay Wilder, who has the brain power of, I don't know, a rock. And, Tyson Fury runs around and talks about how he wants to kill Tyson Fury. And Deontay Wilder's a moron. That's why you get the racial undertones, because then you get all the stupid black people who are cheering for Wilder. You get all the stupid white people cheering for Fury. And then that's how you get the racial undertones.
Well, and also, that it is what it is, how you think. Jack Johnson surely knew what it was like to be Jack Johnson. He said, I couldn't wait to get back to America after he fought Tommy Burns in Australia. He goes, if you think white people are mean in America, you've never been to Australia. God, white people were fucking awful. I've never met white people so awful in my life than when I went to Australia. I never met white people as nice in my life when I went to France. America's somewhere between those two countries as far as white people, how they view black people at the time.
All right. Hawker Mustang says Rocky Marciano is usually underrated. He would fight at light heavyweight today. He would not. It drives me nuts people say that. You could say fight at cruiserweight, but 175 is light heavyweight. 190 is not.
I don't gamble because people lose at it. Most people I know think they gamble. You're going to lose at it. But I'll tell you, if I were gambling, a lot of times in Marciano's prime, I probably would have bet against them. The whole reach disadvantage and stuff and the awkwardness, it's only after it's all over that you look back and say how great Marciano is. I think going into a lot of his fights, I would think, hey, this guy might be at a real disadvantage. I could really see betting against Marciano and losing all my money because going into these fights, it appears the other guy should be able to jab away and stuff like that because it doesn't work out that way. He's not fighting dumb guys. It turns out Marciano is just better than the numbers that you look at, and that's why it's a sport.
Yeah, and right here, Buddy's got a good point. In past years, fighters cut down dramatically. Today they bulk up. So I don't think if Rocky Marciano was alive in today, he would probably be 210, 215 pounds.
That's true. That there is all sorts of things as far as how they eat, what they do. You're right. They would probably bulk Marciano up, but again, why? Look at the way he did what he had to do in landing the punches and improving himself as a heavyweight. And again, why do you wish he wasn't a heavyweight? You wish he was light heavyweight instead. Why would you say I don't think he should have fought as a heavyweight when the guy won all his fights? I mean, it would seem to me that somebody should lose sometimes and then say, gee, I've seen them lose sometimes. Maybe if they went down somewhere, they wouldn't lose as much. But the guy kept winning.
Chris Bird. Chris Bird's a guy, when you watch him, he was a really good heavyweight, beat some good heavyweights. But when he'd fight the Ike Buchis of the world, he'd get smashed because he wasn't big enough. I can understand why you'd say, why didn't he fight at light heavyweight? Because he might have been a champion for many years. But with Marciano, as you said, he beat every heavyweight he fought.
And again, Try to treat boxing as a sport. Joe Kowinski was about 175 pounds. He would not be allowed to fight heavyweights. Joe Kowinski did terrific against heavyweights, not always as well against light heavyweights. It's because sometimes I think, are people actually viewing them? I mean, what the hell are they viewing? It's hard to know, but there's a reason Kowinski did so well against heavyweights, and you wouldn't have been allowed to fight him today, and we wouldn't know how that he was very talented against heavyweights. And meanwhile, his record wasn't quite as great sometimes against light heavyweights.
Well, the world's soft because, Marciano may not do as well in the era of 12-round fights. Because really, if you look at it, if him and Walcott's a 12-round fight, Walcott wins. Of course, I also think Marciano would have stepped it up sooner and probably taken him out in the 9th or 10th. But always an interesting conversation when you talk about Marciano.
You're always going to, even when Marciano's fighting his prime, you're going to lose gambling on the guy against them because you just think that reach disadvantage has got to kill him. And you can't say, well, if it had been another era, things would have turned out different. People thought it would turn out different in his era. In his era, it was very unusual to have such a reach disadvantage and keep winning the way he was. What are you going to
do? Ryan says guys who bulk up usually can't handle the later rounds. I just don't believe that with Marciano. I believe I would equate him to Evander Holyfield. He bulked up about 20, 25 pounds. I think Evander Holyfield could have won 15 rounds if he'd had to. We did see him at a lower weight go 15 rounds against Dwight Muhammad Qawi. He bulked up later, and I don't remember except when he had the heart issues, in the mid 90s.
Yeah,
I don't really see him having a problem with that. So I think Marciano's a different breed.
And also, exactly, different breed. I like that phrase because numbers aren't everything. There's a reason I put Dempsey and Tyson and kept putting them together with Marciano. Not everybody, when they get a knockdown, charges up in a sort of frenzy that way. You can't just automatically do it. There's just a few guys in the whole history of the division who charged up the way they did, and Dempsey and Tyson were along with Marciano. They had a guy in trouble. They charged up a certain way. Tyson didn't later on. Undefeated Tyson early in his career.
Undefeated Tyson early in his career didn't fight guys like Ezzard Charles and Jersey Joe Walcott, though.
I just meant that they were great finishers when they had somebody down. And you can see Marciano would charge up the same way you could see that.
No, you give me Dempsey. I'll give you Dempsey. I'm not giving you Tyson because Tyson doesn't even belong in the same sentence as Rocky Marciano.
Numbers don't say why someone else gets a knockdown, stands back and admires their work. Numbers don't explain that because numbers have nothing to do with it. That's the person inside you.
Numbers don't explain why somebody's great and other people aren't, if you know what I mean. The thing is this: if Rocky Marciano fights Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson in his prime was what, 210, 212, and Rocky Marciano's 190, I'm taking Rocky Marciano because Rocky Marciano ain't gonna be afraid of him, and we already know what happens to Mike Tyson then.
And who knows, the whole undefeated thing. Gene Tunney finished his career 75-1, and the one loss against the champion. If he had been undefeated, probably people would be shitting all over Gene Tunney today.
Well, the thing is this: Gene Tunney, people just don't even bring up hardly anymore because
he's a great light heavyweight. He only fought at the heavyweight a couple times.
But the thing is this:
you're right. He's an accurate fighter, accurate puncher.
If though, after he beat Jack Dempsey, he would have stayed at heavyweight, then I'm thinking, he probably could have been a champion for the next 3 or 4 years amid the bridge between him and Joe Louis. Because really, with the guys that were there, I don't think the guys like Jack Sharkey or Max Baer are going to beat Gene Tunney. I think he was technically superior to them. So I know he was done. But
it takes something to know yourself as an athlete, when to quit. Louis really had to hang in there and wait for Tyson. But Louis wasn't really there completely when he fought Raheem and got knocked out. It's not easy. It's just not easy to train like you have to train. Roberto Duran, goddamn, hates it. Marciano hated it. These great heavyweights to do what you have to do and then try to do it again and try to do it again. And then Marciano just knew when it was time to stop. Tunney felt it was time for him to stop, and that's why I think it was the right time for him to stop.
And Buddy says Tunney is overrated at heavyweight. He's going to be because he beat Jack Dempsey. Now, Dempsey had taken 2 or 3 years off.
How's he an overrated heavyweight if he didn't lose as a heavyweight?
Because he didn't fight as a heavyweight, Chris.
Well, because he didn't keep fighting, getting knocked out to make somebody else happy. He didn't need to get knocked out, lay on the ground, goddamn unconscious, to make some person he'll never meet in life happy. He knew it was as an athlete.
The point
is very difficult for athletes to know.
But the point is this: Gene Tunney is overrated because the only thing he did do was beat an older Jack Dempsey.
Well, plus, he's not. Is he overrated as a heavyweight? He's not overrated as a boxer.
No.
He mostly didn't fight as a heavyweight. 75-1, and they fought as a heavyweight, what, 2 or 3 times. So, yeah, if he only got 2 or 3 times as a heavyweight, is he one of the great heavyweight champions? I don't know. The guy fought 76 times and won 75 times. He's one of the great boxers of all time.
One of the greatest.
If he didn't stand there, the heavyweight, his brain bashed in. It's because the guy said, "I don't want to do it anymore." You don't want to get into a fight with another heavyweight. Don't do it.
Chris, he could have fought for a few more years and not risked anything with the heavyweights of the early 30s.
But he thought, you know what? I'm not going to be who I think I am as an athlete, and that is dangerous. You know, when you're facing somebody, and again, the admission of I can't do this anymore. Boxing is really grueling. Football is there's another game the next week, and heavyweight, to get your head, the training, and everything you got to do. There's a reason. Really, not that many people have a long run.
Yeah. All right, Chris, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening in tonight. Who are we doing next? We haven't even talked about this. Throw me a name.
Well, I was actually thinking, like Oliver McCall. The only reason we don't have to Oliver McCall, but I was going to say,
not
when we
Oliver
talk about
McCall,
people with great
somebody
chin,
interesting.
McCall never went down, and you never hear about his great chin. But we don't have to Oliver McCall. I would like to one time, but not necessarily the next time. We'll come up with somebody. We don't have to have this moment. Go Jasmine Sky about hair and stuff like that. I'm trying to get the girl in the apartment here, so I'm not alone. I got Hoop, but I want Jasmine.
What the hell is a Jasmine Guy?
Jasmine Sky. She's a girl who does great with hair and stuff like that. And I like her to. There's no more clean. I like Jasmine here. I like a girl hanging out. Who's wearing a girl dress? I need a real girl here.
All right, guys. That's a weird way to end the show, Chris, by the way.
Well, you know what? All we did is we did a great show on Marciano in the sense that you watch the visuals.
You got a phone
you
number?
You don't have to hear us talk. Watch the visuals. You like them or don't like them.
Hey. If you want, though, if you've got Jasmine's phone number, we can call her and see if we can set you up on a blind date and maybe do it on YouTube.
Believe me, if Jasmine somehow ever shows up, all the guys are going to want her on the show constantly. They're going to kick us two off and just have her do the show.
No, they won't. I'm pretty too. I'm real pretty too. Buddy actually just chimed in and said Mike's pretty too. But Buddy wants us to name the next show, fellas. Come on.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll throw out a name of some kind. If Oliver McCall didn't sound terribly exciting, I think we should do McCall one day. How about? And then we can always change our minds. One of the guys, Witherspoon, but we may change our minds. Also, Witherspoon.
We already did Witherspoon.
Are you on him too, or
we didn't do a video though.
No, we will one day too.
We can't do Bruno because he sucked.
Well, maybe let's do Tyson and Holyfield. How can we go wrong on that? Just the two fights. We'll do a little bit of build up and stuff like that, and we may not do it. But hey, Tyson and Holyfield is something to think about at least.
All right. Do we want to do it next Sunday or the Sunday after?
I think that one's so easy. We could do next Sunday, but we don't know if we're going to change our minds or find out something else. Well, how about if we're going to try and put together a quality show? We'll definitely have it in 2 weeks. Probably 2 weeks sounds about right because I have things I have to do. I got another project that people want me to do, editing and writing and all kinds of different things for something that's not boxing related.
Plus, you got to look through that telescope at Jasmine Sky, right? Jasmine
Sky's got to be here too. And newsletters to do. We got personal lives too. Mike's grandfather, or he's got to please his wife in bed, go on vacations with her. He's got to Jasmine Sky.
Don't call me old. You just call me old by calling me a grandfather.
No, grandfather didn't make you old at all. We saw what happened with Larry Holmes fighting Ray Mercer. Grandfather too gave Larry Mercer a boxing lesson for sure.
Hold on now. Is Jasmine Sky on Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you spell that? We'll show everybody what you like.
Sure. Jasmine is Jasmine. Oh, and it's great because we can see her business. Jasmine, and then Sky, SKY.
All right, let's see what happens here.
Didn't get her business there. If she should have real red kind of hair. I actually tried to put red dye into her philosophy is if you work on your hair, you care about yourself.
Well,
yeah, we're gonna whose hair.
The first one that propped up was a prostitute. Hold on, here I found her.
Yeah, she had red hair and it's her business too. That's her business name, such. So
all right, we'll share her picture right now because I know Buddy is, waiting to see what Jasmine looks like. Is that her?
That's Jasmine. I love her. Yes, and she's got a great business in Scottsdale. She does hair. She does amazing things. She's an amazing person, and I sure wish she was in this apartment more. I love her. She's really smart and clever.
She comes to your apartment?
Yeah, she's my neighbor. Used to be my neighbor, and I liked her parents a lot too. And that she lives in Scottsdale. Believe me, this is a ghetto slum that right now you're viewing. Scottsdale is the nice part of Arizona, and she's, you know, a classier person than I am. I'm just a grunt living in 27th and Glendale. 27th and Glendale is the pits ghetto, but
So
that's where I live. She's a little bit
is,
classier stuff. Lives in Scottsdale.
our goal here is by next year when we're doing this show, you're talking about the lovely Jasmine Shelton.
Correct? I love her. And she's smart, clever. You know, I'm really good at certain boxing things. I can't do shit when it comes to a lot of other things. And she's, you know, I like somebody around also who knows how to work the telephone, work the television, work all these different things she knows how to do. And I can't do shit except boxing.
Damn. You can't work the television, Chris?
I can't get the television going. No, I have to watch right now a little movie channel set and just leave it there. So that's it. At least, you know, when it's Marilyn Monroe, it's a good day. When it's Earl Flynn, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get this TV working. You know, I can't get it figured out. I can't even get the soap dispenser figured out. Can't get the soap out of the soap dispenser. Pisses me off all the things I can't do. Jasmine can do them all, and my hair would look amazing if she did it, but I tried to do it. So it's probably
maybe when we do the Holyfield Tyson show, you can get her to come to your apartment and do your hair while we do the show.
Wouldn't that be great? Oh, that'd be the greatest thing on earth. Oh God, I'll mention that. I will mention that. Absolutely.
Okay, that way she can plug everything and, you know, do your hair while you talk about Tyson at Holyfield.
Absolutely. That is like, all of a sudden I'm glad Buddy Gibbs said to us to start thinking a little bit. Once we started thinking, you know, I like the whole thing and the whole way it's working out. You know, so Buddy Gibbs, thank you. You're right. Mike and I we're really thinking here. Holyfield Tyson maybe, and Jasmine does my hair and looking real good. I don't care what Jasmine's wearing and stuff. She looked good and good business in Scottsdale.
All right, guys, we're going to get off of here. I think this was our best show ever, Chris.
Well, there you go. Jasmine Hoot and the two of us, and Buddy Gibbs and comments, and our Irish friend who just absolutely thinks Marciano shouldn't have fought as a heavyweight, except he did win all his fights as a heavyweight. But
yeah, you know, Buddy, Ryan, we want to thank everybody for chiming in. Sean, Hawker Mustang, there's a few other ones here, Marcus Carter. So we will be back probably in 2 weeks to talk a little Tyson Holyfield. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. Maybe make sure you go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page. Make sure you follow us there. We've got close to 140,000 followers there. Make sure you jump over to Twitter. We're nearing 30,000 at Grueling Truth.
Thanks, your audience. Love you. Thank you.
So for now, for me, Mike Goodpaster, him, Christopher Shelton, who's in love with Jasmine, we will see you guys in 2 weeks.